Welcome to Thriving Rockstar with Alex Rakin. Today's guest is Litvin. How are you, Lee?
I'm great, Alex. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. I caught you on Instagram, and I seen what you're helping artists. What is it? You help entrepreneurial rappers see their full potential,
Yeah.
and that caught my eye. And then I look at your content, and I like the mindset you're spitting. So like, I knew we'd have a good conversation. So what have you been up to during this quarantine?
Well, first, man, thank you. That's an honor. I appreciate you checking out the profile and liking what I'm doing. That means a lot. Well, during the quarantine, man, honestly, this has been, obviously the pandemic is terrible. It's crazy that we've gone through this. And as a world, it's brought us together and we've lost tons of millions of people. So on a macro scale, it's obviously never good to see. But from my own personal life, this has been one of the best times of my entire life. This has been one of the most pivotal 12 weeks that have ever happened to me. Just been really focused on myself. I think I've finished a book or two books. Just been getting in shape, focused way more on music than I was before. I've really just kind of gone even more all in. Started my own Well, I had a podcast I was doing once a week, and I did that for 2 years, but then I pivoted the podcast to a more music focused pod, and now I do one every day. So I started that. Got way more serious about the vlog, and yeah, it's been good. It's just been a lot of like focusing on myself and just getting better and improving and just building a lot of habits. And the reason is because I didn't have to focus on seeing other people, and I realized that the big thing I learned, it's crazy. Like I learned that like your energy, you have to expend energy when you're with others, right? And I've realized a limited amount of energy per day. They say that Einstein and Steve Jobs wore the exact same outfit every day because they didn't want to expend wasted brain energy on picking an outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have a limited amount of decision-making power and thinking power and energy. And when we're with other people, we're expending energy on them, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes people give us the energy back, right? But sometimes they don't. And so with this, being isolated has made me give all that energy to myself and give energy to making music, podcasts, YouTube, meeting people on social like we've met, creating content. So it's been a big positive shift for me personally, and it's been very good, honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. Like, and it's funny you say that. I just finished an ebook. I'm going to be putting it out a few days from now, and then and I worked on that through this whole thing. So I've also had a very productive quarantine.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think musicians in particular, or anyone working from home, or anyone who would like to work from home, this was that time, and I've been saying it the whole time that like this is the time to buckle down. This is the time to like focus
Right.
on yourself and go deep, and go hard. And so. But yeah, like a limited amount of resources. That's something I actually wrote in the book, like as far as like willpower limitations, right? So if you make little decisions in the morning, if you're too busy choosing what your clothes are, you're too busy, choosing your food, this, that, the other thing, by the time you get to the evening, it's like a meter. That meter of willpower runs out, and then you make stupid decisions and sort of go back on all the things that you've been working towards. So if you've been dieting and stuff, you're going to just get loose on it in the evening and undo what you did earlier in the day. So very important. A nap actually is a really good way to replenish that.
Right. I'm horrible with napping because I have this, I don't know, dude. I have this hold back. I've done it obviously, but I have this weird hold back where I just like, I don't know, I can't bring myself to just stop what I'm doing for some reason. Although every time I've taken a nap, I have always like been super happy about it. Um, I mean, do you know, I don't know anything about the science of sleep. Like, have you done like research on that
Yeah,
at
but
all?
yeah. There's a few things. Well, for one, I think that the root thing to take care of first, and this is a thing I spoke about also in that little book. The book is like 8 habits on making. Well, gosh, I forgot what I named it. 8 habits to make a musician thrive, or something like that, right? So, yeah, I'll send it your way when it's
Oh,
when
I,
it's
I
up.
would love to purchase it if it's going to be a purchase thing. I want to buy it for sure.
I'm probably gonna give it away for an email subscription. That's how I'm gonna do it.
Perfect. Good.
Yeah.
That's smart. I love it. Good. I'll be on the email list then for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So basically with sleep, okay, first thing to think about, I think, and I'm not an expert on this, but I've done a little research on it. Um, is there chronotype. All right, so the chronotypes, people have different chronotypes. So some people naturally sleep better from like 10 a.m. to like say 10 a.m. to 6, sorry, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Some people do better from like 11 to 7, and so people have like just different sleep windows that they function best in. Actually, the last interview that I did, she was sleeping from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? Which I don't think is anyone's chronotype, but she's done that for over a
Right.
decade. And she just does that because at night she likes getting stuff done. That's like her serene, quiet period. And I hear that a lot, right? But another way to get that period is just to wake up really early, right? People who,
Yeah.
like this one guy I interviewed, I think it was episode 19, this Wyatt Staff. He woke up at 2 a.m. every day. So he had a day job.
Okay.
He had a day job of like working from 8 a.m. to like 4 p.m. or something like that. And it was just like a basic stock boy job. But he would wake up at 2 a.m. and get a whole bunch of stuff done, work on his YouTube channel and all of this. And then he would go to work, come back, work on it a little bit more, and then just hang out, play video games with his girlfriend, go to bed like 7 p.m. Okay? Right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And if that worked for him. He actually he did that until his YouTube channel earned more than his job, and he quit, and he's been a full-time YouTuber. So, which is great.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, but as far as like actual sleep hacks and thinking about like what would improve sleep and make it more efficient, right? I don't want to get kind of veer too far off, but well, for one thing, that what would make sleep better? Like think about winding down, right? People like are so wired and they're working and they're
Right.
staring at screens, or if they're recording content, they probably have a really bright light on their face, right? So and that's like you don't get to produce the melatonin that you're supposed to produce in the evening because you have like these
Hmm.
daylights on you, right? Basically the
Hmm.
blue light, right? So what you would do essentially is like wear blue light blocking glasses, right? Which kind of like so you can keep
Oh, they
working.
have that?
Yeah, they have that. I have those, right? So sometimes I'll wear those in the evening. I'm not great about it, but um, if I wear those, then I'll properly wind down, right? And if I don't, if I forget to wear them, maybe I'll pop like a 3 milligram to 10 milligrams of melatonin, and that'll help me sort of sleep well and not like wake up a bunch of times at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but besides that, like the whole napping thing, right? Sleep is it's a thing that is the same for everybody, but it's also different for everybody in subtle ways, right? Everyone needs sleep, right? Let's start there. And it's something that is so important to you being productive in that day, right? I mean, like if you don't get enough sleep, right, not only is like your chances of mortality like majorly modulated, right, but it's like all your health factors are basically if you night of like maybe of like 3 hours of sleep or some like loss of sleep, it's like all of your health markers go out the window for that day, right? And
Hmm.
you're also a lot more hungry, like unbearably hungry. You've been there, if like you lose
I've
sleep on
noticed that.
yeah, yeah, you just can't get enough food, and you just don't make as good choices. And when you sleep, you also replenish your cerebral fluid, right? So,
Hmm.
like during the day, we have like a lymphatic system, right, that flushes us out, cleans us. But at night, when we sleep, our brain gets flushed, right? So, and we get to process all of our memories and all of that. So, it's really important for brain health. It's really important for overall health. And that's one of the areas that are really neglected. You know, people like stay up late and whatnot. And it's okay to stay up late if you get enough sleep. But I have to say, you know, although I do it from time to time, I don't recommend staying up too late into the AMs, because what happens like right past midnight, if you're asleep like by 11 or so, is you have growth hormone production. So if you're trying to like, you know, just not only growth hormone, but other hormones as well, if you're trying to make gains, you know, you're working out, and like your best bet is to get some sleep, to get to bed before midnight, for most people.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I don't know if I kind of veered off your question a little bit.
No, that was actually, all of that was important.
Yeah.
That was. I'm curious about sleep because I don't know barely anything about it, and I've been getting much better sleep recently. But my trick for me, if I want to get more sleep, is that I have to force myself to wake up early, and then I'm going to be so tired that I'll go to sleep early. And that's where I've been. Now I'm going to bed 10:15, 10:30, where I used to go to bed 11:30, midnight, and still wake up at 6. Now I'm going 10:15, waking up at 5:30. It's so much, and it's way, and like wind down, like big time winding down. The thing that is hard for me, the phone, is if I'm on the phone with the social media, that's way more stimulating than literally anything. And so if I just put the phone away and don't do phone calls or FaceTimes or social media, I literally do anything, like even watching Netflix is better. It's not great because it's still a screen, but I'm telling you, even that, I can fall asleep to that by 10:15, not by the phone, you know?
Yeah, I mean, those blue light blocking glasses are probably a good thing for you then, you know? That's a good hack. The other thing I failed to mention is like cold exposure, right? So taking a cold shower is really going to help you go to sleep. It also helps burn fat. So
Gotcha. And you're talking about at night?
Yeah.
Okay, because I usually do a cold shower, but I always do it in the mornings.
I do it too, yeah. I actually have a sauna here, so I do sauna and then I do the cold shower. Yeah.
Oh, that's tight.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I got my hands on a sauna, and it's one of the best things, man. I love it. I do it like every day.
Dude, and is it indoors or outdoor?
Well, it's an indoor sauna, but I have it on the deck outside. So but I have like a tarp over it. Yeah. But it takes some time to heat up unless it's hot outside. I mean, you're in Cali, but yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's pretty good. It like gets to like 180, 190 in there. So, yeah,
I love that. I want to get one of those. I want a steam room. That's really what I want.
Yeah.
I love the steam, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, just, like, heat exposure like is really really good, right? The other thing, you want to get enough vitamin D. So going outside, getting some sun, super important. In fact, like one thing I heard this from Rhonda Patrick on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? And she was talking about like 97% people who had severe COVID symptoms, and you know, severe and fatal COVID had they were deficient in vitamin D. Yeah, and that's exacerbated by the fact that people are staying home, right?
Oh wow, right.
So she's taking 5,000 IU a day of vitamin D3, and that's a really good thing to do. Right, what I've been doing, and here's another sleep hack: grounding. Right. So what I've been doing, I've been working out like I have a normal workout in the day. I work out every day, but in the morning I do another little workout, like a little cardio. Right, but I do that outside in my underwear, barefoot in the grass. Yeah. Right.
I love that.
And the reason I do that is like when you're in the grass, you have like negative ions, and like I forgot the kind of particular science behind it, but you have an electrical charge that you ground with the earth, and it actually helps reset your sleep schedule. So if you're off and you want to kind of correct your sleep schedule, going out and this is also something to cure, like, let's say hangover too, but a jet lag, right? So if you're traveling, the first, like, to work out and work out in the grass, like do yoga, say, in the grass, is a great idea, because doing that is gonna help like ground you and gonna help reset the sleep schedule.
Wow.
So yeah, so I do that, and then I jump in the sauna, then I do the cold shower, and then I have breakfast, right? So I do all that fasted. Yeah, so we all have our little health practices, but that's how I kind of,
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting because we have similar, like in the morning I don't do the exact same items, but I do all that stuff fasted. Like I wake up, water, and then exercise, do a couple other exercise, stretch, and then I'll eat. So it's similar, and I the whole waking up and working out first before meals, it just works for me personally. I guess it works for you too, because I always had the issue of there was I trained for 2 different half marathons 1 year apart. When I trained for the first one, I woke up, I would eat something, and I'd always have to go to the bathroom while I was on my run, and that's like no fun because a lot of times you're running, there's no bathrooms around on a trail. So I had to always constantly figure out, okay, like experiment. And eventually I was just like, dude, I'm just gonna not eat. I guess that's the only way, and it worked. So I think it just, on that note, it depends on who you are, and that has a lot to do with sleep too. Like if you wake up really late, it depends. Like, so it just, everybody's different.
Yeah, no, I hear that. That's definitely the case. But what I hear, for as far as like this different kind of workouts are better to do at different times a day. So like if you're doing like cardio, that's best done fasted in the morning. But if you want your most strong, if you're doing like strength work, in the afternoon, later in the afternoon, you have the best like hormonal state for exercise.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I do both, right? So I do the cardio in the morning fasted, and then like I'll do like some lifting. I just got 80s a few months ago, and so those.
So my 80-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Damn, you're going hard.
Yeah, I go pretty hard. I'd love to have a barbell and just like literally deadlift out here, but the problem is like to literally get a barbell, like a decent barbell and plates enough to like do like a decent deadlift, that's $1,000.
Yeah.
Just right there, because like every plate is like $100, and
right.
and I need at least like 6 of them, to like if I'm deadlifting any kind of real weight, and a barbell, which is going to be like if it's a decent one, 150, 200. So
right.
Yeah. So I haven't dished out for that, and that'll be an awkward thing to travel with if I end up moving from here. So
right. No, I mean, I think physical health is so like crucial. I talk about that all the time on my pod, on Instagram. I just made a post today about it. Like, people neglect their physical health, especially musicians. I think that that's always been one thing that's made me a little bit different as a producer, musician, whatever, is that I come from a background of basketball. Like I started my life as a basketball player. That's where my like life background is. I didn't start with music. So I come from athletics, sports, team-oriented, leadership, hard work, tenacity. I come from that. And I sometimes have noticed a lot, and this is something that repels me a lot about some musicians and a lot of the music industry, is the music industry is so, well, not the music industry. A lot of underground musicians are so creative based, and they're not hard. Some of them aren't about the work ethic and the intensity and the leadership and the sport aspect, because it's very hard. That's not black and white, because once you get into sports, now we're talking I'm better than you, win, lose. Music's not about win, lose,
right.
And it's really not about comparing, right?
Right.
So there's aspects of sports you need to subtract, but there are aspects of sports that you should have that artists don't. And one thing is a lot of people neglect their physical health. Obviously, you and I don't, but and it's to me, when I'm, I'll work with somebody musically who doesn't do physical health. That's not a big deal. But be honest, when it comes to like choosing a life partner, like a romantic partner, like I'm not going to choose a girl who doesn't work out somewhat. Right. You don't need to be obsessed. You don't need to like working out, but you need if a girl isn't consistently working out and she's not into it, it's just not my type of
I
person to be
agree.
with.
Yeah, I agree. It's
Yeah.
funny. Like, yeah, that's a big thing for me. Um, like, I mean, it's not. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting your like you're into your partner, right? And we're dudes. Let's be honest. Like, you're attracted to your girl on a physical level, and then also
Oh
on
yeah,
all
of
the other
course.
levels, right? And I think having that mutual agreement that you're going to take care of yourself, not let yourself go, like she doesn't want to be with this guy with a huge belly, and you don't want her to balloon either, right? Over time, right? So like the idea is like, okay, yeah, let's take care of ourselves, not only to stay attractive for one another, which is very important, right? If you want to
Oh,
maintain
absolutely.
you want to maintain that long-term intimacy, and it's like we have relationships that like the people let themselves get lazy, let each other get lazy over decades, and then they get mad when like they partner goes out and or has desires to go outside the relationship for intimacy because he's no longer attracted to
Yeah,
the partner. Like, it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and I think
yeah.
it's a conversation that ought to be had. Like, I'm all about like communication in a relationship, on that level. Just not just physically, but like you need to be working on yourself. You need to be working on you.
Oh yeah, 100%. Do you know Ed Milet?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so he's a podcast I think you'll like. He has a show called the Ed Milet Show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and on one of his episodes, he talked about that, about how important. He said basically like the number one reason for divorce is that attraction, down to the nitty gritty. I mean, there's all these other reasons that people will say on the surface, but the fact is you lose attraction for that person, and you know, I think that goes. And I'll be honest, like for me, like with my last relationship, I let myself go physically.
Mm.
I was exercising a lot, but the diet was bad, and so I got up to fucking 191,
Mm.
and I'm only 5'8", so I
Mm.
got to almost 200 pounds, and I was like, dude, that's. I look at pictures of myself then, and I'm like, it's embarrassing. Now I'm at 155. I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a difference, but yeah, like that's like a big thing that people just. I don't know. People forget, and like when you're not in a relationship, like you have to remember to be in a relationship with yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
looking at yourself, being like, do you like what you see? Like, and that's crazy that that's one thing that I don't know how, but like even since I was a little kid, I have always talked to myself like out loud when I'm by myself or in my head, and I've
Mm-hmm.
always been super aware of you know you know the yin and yang, if you will, in myself. Always been aware of that, and so when I'm not with a partner, I'm literally like I'm just at my highest level of the two different sides of me, and I give myself the you know and I've literally made so many decisions that I've gone with and been right about with so many things. Just talking to myself, it's been like that with fitness. It's been like that with the podcast. And so once you get into a relationship, though, you really don't lose. You can't lose that relationship with yourself. Another thing too, I've heard from maybe it was Gary V,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it was Andy Frisella, but they had said one of them had said nobody really knows you. Like even your mom or dad and your wife, they don't know you
I think
because they
that's
don't
Gary
really
V.
know what's.
Yeah.
Okay, you heard that too. So it was Gary
Yeah.
Vee. They don't really know what's going on up here, and you're not lying, but nobody knows you even close to the level you know you. Nobody, and you got to realize that there. I just feel like when you're alone, and this has happened during the quarantine for me. There's that distance between me and everybody else, and I think
Mm-hmm.
the problem is people look too much to other people for confirmation, recognition, ideas, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and we just. And I think that when you're in a relationship, because we're kind of talking about that, you look too much to that other person for support, or you look too much to that other person. If you just work on yourself more, that other person will be attracted to you, and vice versa. You know,
This
what do you
is.
think of that?
Oh yeah, no, for sure, dude, for sure. Like, and there's nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing crazy about talking to yourself. In fact, the first self-development book that I've read that got me into the whole thing that I found by accident was a book called It was by Shad Helmstetter. It's called "What to Say When You Talk to Yourself." What to say when you talk to yourself.
Really?
Yes, that was the first self-development book I read, and it was on affirmations, right? It was about how you've been programmed by those around you, and people's conversation with themselves actually get skewed and directed by what they've heard about them from other people growing up, and also just their own interpretation of their own successes and failures and all of that. And then once I read that book, I became intentional about those conversations, right? And I realized that I could direct that in a direction of my choosing rather than of where I ended up, based on circumstance or whatever. So, yeah, no, I totally agree. It's so important, and nobody knows you. Nobody knows you the way you know you. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't utility to having like your circle of people who you trust the opinions of. So you have people who can say, build you up when you need to, or even roast you when you're a little bit above where you need to be. So that's an important thing, that social dynamic. But you need to be deliberate about the people you surround yourself with. So you make sure that when you are open, because you can't help but absorbing other people into becoming the average of them, right? We become the average of the 5 people we spend our time with and the books we read. So we can't help that, right? And now one thing that's kind of difficult is like, okay, maybe you have people in your family or people you're kind of stuck with living with, and they're not exactly a person you would choose to be in your life. And so, to keep a healthy distance is nice in those situations, or to basically take it with a grain of salt if you can. And to be able to hear people, but not internalize their toxicity or, their mindset, which might, be one that kind of goes against what you're trying to do. So,
my grandma always used to say, you don't have to love your family. She used to say that to me. You don't get to choose them. So why do you have to love them? They have to earn it. It's the same thing. My grandma used to say that. My dad passed that down to me too. It's just exactly what you just said. So I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. And oddly enough, when somebody's telling you that you probably do end up really caring about that person, because they realize their own, maybe inadequacy in being everything that you need, so it's normal as a child grows up to think that their parents are like these, infallible figures, and that can't do wrong, and that like everything they do is right. And most people's parents are not perfect parents. You know what I'm saying? So it's like no one is perfect. No one grows up in this pillowy perfect environment, that's for sure. You're not making it to adulthood without getting fucked up in some way. So that said, it's what you do that matters, and what you surround yourself with. And that's where books come in, right? And not just books, right? So, not everyone's going to sit and read pages on paper. But today we have YouTube, we have podcasts such as this one, we have, and yours, and we have all these different medium that we can consume and surround ourselves with, and mindset that we can kind of take in to sort of shape our way of thinking to, to be in tune with what we want,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, totally. And the thing you said too about the average of the 5 people, it's interesting. I'm reading this book again called Relentless by Tim Grover. Have you heard of that?
I heard of the title. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the best. I mean, I'm literally rereading it because it's so good. But in the book, he talks about how you don't need. People say I need positive people around me, but the problem is people then interpolate that as I need people who are just going to be positive. But like you had said, you need people who are going to bring you down and give you honest feedback. That's one thing you said that I was like totally on board with. You were like, you had just said that, and I was like, yeah, for sure. I think that like, and one thing when I was starting out with music, one of my friends, actually two of my friends were really critical of the music on purpose, and they were trying to be deliberate in that care for me, and it helped, right? A bunch of my other friends weren't like that. They were kind of, yeah, this is good, this is good. They weren't thinking about the music, and I said, listen, I appreciate the support, but even if you like it, can you fake it and find something wrong? Just like go out of your way just to make this better, because I think I'm not that good and I want help. And then they did. And so I kind of had to, like, now my whole friend group of musicians, we all do that for each other. Even if, we try our best to find things to say, even if we can't think of them. And when we really can't think of something, then we know that song is on point.
Yeah, I think this is even more of a problem with people who've made it to a certain level, because they have a bunch of yes men around them, People like go around and sort of praise them and kiss their feet and like, tell them everything they do is gold, right? And it's easy to get into a conflated place where it's just like you don't know what's good, like it's like everyone is just praising everything that comes out of you. And so, yeah, it's definitely good to have someone who's going to kind of keep you in check, and, or a group of people even. And that's critical. I may be mistaken, but I think I heard like Elon Musk saying a similar thing. So, I've heard it from a few different sources. It's definitely a good thing to think about. So how I love that you came from the sports background, because it has a completely there's a teamwork element, right? There's that, like, there's a goal and that you're striving toward and that you're achieving, and it's like it's competitive, but it's collaborative as well, right? And I think it's like you said, it's competitive nature. We shouldn't view music competitively. It's more collaborative than anything else, right? Right. With exception of even something like Battle of the Bands, and I would even say something like that, or any of these shows where people compete. I would say even with that, it's still collaborative. It's just like you still encourage one another. You want each other to do well. It's not like people are kind of, you would hope in that environment, and I think this is the case, where competence is what wins, right? It's like someone's really good and does what they do well, and it's like you're not mad at them for being good. It's just like they're good, and
right.
You're always trying to improve yourself, right? It's not like boxing game where it's just like there's real beef or something, so
right.
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing. It's a really great. What else do you think you took from sports?
What else did I take from sports? I mean, I think the biggest thing that I took from sports, from basketball, was basketball is a sport, and this is to me why it's the best sport in the world, because you can do it you can practice and get better by yourself. All you need is a ball. You don't even need a hoop, right? You could just dribble by yourself, and that's it. Most other sports, it's kind of hard to do that. Baseball, you can do that, but you're gonna have to hit the ball and then go get it. I mean, you can hit it against a wall, but you need a ball, a bat, and a wall, and you can't use your house. You're gonna have to find a wall that you can hit against. I mean, that's hard, and you can't really practice. Yeah, football, I mean, you could work on strength and agility, but that's not football. Soccer, you could do dribbling with your feet for sure. That's another sport I'd say you can do that. Tennis, you can hit against the wall, but basketball is one of those unique sports where you can work on it completely by yourself. And so I spent hours and hours and hours working on it by myself. And I didn't need anybody to help me get better. I just needed me and a ball. And so that I've learned the same thing with music. I used to just be an artist. For the first 7 years of my career, I was a rapper, vocalist, right? Recording artist. And I depended on producers, and it screwed me up. It screwed me over, because I would have to wait for somebody to finish my songs. They wouldn't get finished the way I wanted, or I'd have to pay. And as an up-and-coming musician, we're all broke. We all start broke. So I just looked at everything so objectively and realized, well, how could I possibly make it in a music career where I don't own the rights to the beats? Because in hip-hop, mostly we buy beats online. You don't own the rights most of the time. And if you want to own the rights, you're gonna have to spend at least $100 to $200 to $300 for one beat.
Mm-hmm.
How am I gonna own the rights? How am I gonna get it to sound professional and sound the way I want on a consistent basis on a low budget? It's actually impossible. And so I switched and I started producing my own music. So past 3 years I've done that. Now that I'm in the world for the past 3 years of I can produce and write and record, now I'm back in that basketball only. I just need a ball. Now I don't need anything but my studio, and that's it. I don't need anybody. I don't smoke. I don't drink. So I don't need to smoke weed and get high. I don't need to get drunk and go work on music. I just maybe proper lighting,
Right.
and that's it. And I just need to work. I need my setup. I need the equipment. But I think that's something I learned from sports is even if you are playing a sport other than basketball,
Mm-hmm.
figure out a way to do it without anybody. And I always preach that to musicians is do more for yourself than anybody else can do for you. That's what I've learned from basketball. That's what I learned from sports is that you really don't need anybody. And anybody who tells you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something that they're selling. Anybody who says they need other people are just using excuses for why they're not doing it themselves, and they're just BSing.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing I learned too.
Oh yeah, that's huge, man. That's huge. And I love that. Like, yeah, you could work on that yourself. The other thing is, I just as an aside, having something that you could do yourself really helps put you in flow, right? So, and then you get used to that kind of state, and so that as an artist, just that's a good place to access because that's a very creative space. But aside from that, yeah, no, like what you were doing is it's pretty awesome. I went to audio like an audio school actually. I finished audio school with the Institute of Audio Research to learn to like basically mix, right, and to produce and all of that, right, and I did that for myself. There's a few levels to that. As an electric guitar player, I have to, make my own guitar tones and sort of, make myself sound good, right? And so, like, the way you present yourself online is super important, right? So you can have an amazing music, and if you have like shitty production quality, that's really gonna work against you to this day and age, right? If you want to come up and play with the big players, you have to play their game. You have to play on their level. And to play on their level, you have to have quality. And if you don't have, so much money to hire all these people, you got to be able to do it yourself until you get to a point where you could have a team and all of that. But if you want, even anyone who has like this big team and all of that, oftentimes they will start on their own, do everything themselves, like I am doing with this podcast, and then start to outsource things, right? And then but then you can have them do exactly what you want because you can teach them.
Right. It's crazy, like about speaking of like the whole like, so now you're talking about growth a little bit, like from the start. So I've been doing music for like 10 years, and obviously I'm not even close to where I want to be, but I have grown a lot. I've grown a fan base. I've started learning how to generate revenue. I've done a lot of stuff, and I look back at the wins, and I'm like, dude, every time I've had a win, I just did the logical thing that I knew would work, and it's like the growth on social media thing is kind of a great example for me, right? I'm doing this thing right now called 1,000 fans in 90 days. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I learned it from Adam Ivy, but other people have preached it. And I do it on Instagram mainly. You find 12 hashtags, you put 10 comments on 12 or 10 comments on 10 posts per hashtag, creating 120 interactions a day. And you follow people as naturally as you'd like, whatever. And I've been doing that for a few days. I have it actually up here. I've been doing it just for today's the 5th day, and I've grown 50 something followers in like 5 days. So I've had like around 10 per day. Mm-hmm. But the point is, it's a logical thing to do. Like like someone said it to me, and I saw a video, and I was like, that sounds definitely like it would work, and I did it. And it's like, but all these other things that we think we should do,
Mm-hmm.
like if it doesn't sound like it's gonna work or you don't know, you can risk it. But the problem is most people like won't do what sounds like because it's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like it takes sometimes it takes about an hour and a half a day.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of annoying. I got to sit on the phone. I got to sometimes I do the computer. It's not easy, right? But it's like, but I know it works, so why wouldn't I do it? And like a lot of like for you, like, okay, I want to do a podcast. So in your head, you're like, well, I need this, this, and this. Okay, cool, do it. A lot of people are like, oh, I need to come up with the idea. I need to know that. It's like, bro, that doesn't even like make sense. Like, what are you talking about? Like, record. Yeah. So I just think people aren't willing to do the stuff that makes sense, even if it's like the stuff that's difficult, but definitely makes sense to do. You know, people want to find all these different, I don't know, like these sideways routes or same thing. I know I'm rambling, but like same thing with fitness. Like I know you know that, right? Like people are like, oh, I want to lose weight. Like I told people about this program I did, or people were like, how did you lose so much weight? Like I lost 30 pounds. They're like, how'd you lose all that weight? I'm like, well, I did this, and this. And then they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm like, okay, well then don't even think about losing weight. Like I cut this out, and this out. And I did it for like 100 days.
Right.
And they're like, you know, it's the same shit with music. And so here's the deal. If you're a musician, if you don't have money, chances are also you don't have a team, by the way. And if you do have a team, rethink the team because they probably aren't the right people anyway to begin with. So if you don't have the money, if you don't have the team, then dude, you gotta do what you can do, you know? So,
you know,
yeah.
I think I know exactly where you're coming from. There's this pernicious idea that we have in our society of, you know, getting everything quick, you know, 6-pack abs in 2 weeks, like you get rich quick and all of this. And then people just look for shortcuts. People like, you know, they think that there's this one little hack that people do, you know, that there's this one simple thing that they can do that suddenly, you know, changes everything instantly. But the reality is it's not that difficult. It's not complicated. Difficult maybe, but it's not complex. It's simple.
Yes.
It's not easy. It's simple. It's like you do the thing that like is obvious. And if you know, you do that, and as you're doing that, maybe you look at other things that might be more efficient, but you're already doing the thing that you know will work, right? For example, if you're trying to lose weight, like eat less, move more. That's it. Right? Eat less and move more, right? And if you're doing that, that's going to work to a degree. And if you get stuck, then you can start to kind of look a little bit further, right? If you'd like to explore that, right? If you're, you know, trying to build your social media, it's like, well, what's it called? Social media. Be social.
Right.
If you're just putting stuff out and then just like expecting people to just kind of magically appear. No, you have to socialize. You have to be in the community. You have to like comment, like things, follow some people. And then, you know, as you're engaging with people and putting out real content, quality stuff over time, then it's going to work. This one YouTuber was talking about, he had this fitness YouTuber had this video. It was called "Do This Workout for 1 year." Okay, 1 year, right? And so guess what? I watched this video and it didn't actually prescribe any workout. It basically said choose any workout and do it for a year, because you do anything for long enough, you're going to get some kind of result out of it, right? People just don't stick to things. People aren't consistent enough, and they're always looking and, you know, bouncing from thing to thing. But you need to build that up, you know. Like I don't have a particular reason for it, but I've been live streaming on Facebook for 118 days now. So, like, yeah,
really,
yeah. So I'm like, and I number them. I'm like day 118, don't day, you know, whatever. So, and the idea is like consistency and also accountability, because like once you start doing something consistently, you can put that out for people on a strict basis, like let's say on a daily basis or whatever you can maintain. Let's say, right? Maybe you're not going to do something every day. Maybe you do something every other day or 3 times a week. But whatever you do it and stick with it. right? And don't expect it to kind of, amount to something crazy quickly and that you're going to have some exponential success out of it, but expect, just a consistent gain. And then you're tracking what that is, right? Like, let's say you're doing what you're doing, and you see certain of those behaviors, like you see some results from them. So then you do an analysis. Okay, I've been doing this for 3 weeks now. Like, what's been happening? What did I do, and what result did I get? What 20% of what I did is probably resulting for 80% of the results. So let me cut off the rest and do all my time on that 20%. That's the Pareto principle, right? So just getting more and more efficient, and you learn, you adjust, you pivot. In my last conversation, I was talking about entrepreneurship, and I read some books on lean startups, right? And yeah. And so the thing is with lean startups, a lot of times they're pivoting constantly, right? They can even pivot 180 degrees. If you pivot 180 degrees and you keep measuring and you keep analyzing, I don't think you can fail at succeeding eventually, right? Because like you start with an idea, maybe that idea isn't exactly it. Maybe you need to like kind of shift a little bit, shift with your demographic, shift with your product or service, and then do something slightly different and see how that works, right? And you learn every time, and you ask your customers, your fans, your audience, whatever, like, how do you like this? It's like people will actually tell you like, oh, I like this and I don't like that, right? It's like, cool, do more of that, right? So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're out there and you're active and you're consistent and you're measuring and you're adjusting, you should get to where you want to go to.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and that's very true. Yeah, with social media, that's a big thing. With music, that's a big thing. Like the actual creation of music, that's big. I mean, the greatest results I've seen just like musically, like with songs that just sound the best, are when I try something new and it sounds like shit. And then I try it again and again, and I keep going and I keep trying new stuff. And eventually it's like, okay, now this sounds good. Like eventually I tried something new that worked, right? It's the same thing with social media, I mean, this whole 1,000 fans 90 days tactic I'm doing, I know it freaking works because, and it's a new thing, but I know it works. I've gotten 2 podcast interviews. You're the 3rd, but I'm interviewed on yours. I've got 2 people to come on mine. I've made 2 Instagram posts in those 5 days. They've gotten way more engagement than all my other ones. It's not a coincidence. It's the same type of posts I was doing before, but I'm engaging so much more that I think like it's increasing the quality of engagement. Like Instagram will show your posts to like between 2 to 5% of people within the hour that you post. Well, if I'm super engaged with those people, like everyone who sees it is going to like it because they just got a comment from me yesterday or 2 days ago, or they were on my podcast. You're engaging more. So if like you want engagement, you have to lead. You lead the engagement first. It's the same. And this is a little, I don't want to, how do I say it? I don't want to be like so black and white about what I'm about to say, but like generally with like heterosexual dating, like if you're a guy and you're going after a girl, like it's not always like this,
right?
But a lot of the time guys kind of make the first move and they kind of like lead the female from one step to another. It's not always like that. Not every person's like that. Not every couple's like that. I'm just saying a lot of the time. I know from my experience, that's how it's been. And so you lead the person from one step to another. Like if you want something, you go get it as a guy. Well, it's the same with social media, whether you're a girl or a guy. If you're a chick too, if you want fans, if you want engagement, go get them. Go engage with them first. Bring them to you. You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, like, it's one of those things, and yeah, I mean, you're on point with that as far as the just human intimacy in general. There's whether it's male, female, or whatever it is, it's just there's often one that's doing the approach. I guess the more aggressive one, and there's always the dynamic. There's the it's a polarity thing, right? Yeah. So that's definitely true. And yeah, I know it's important to put that forth. You put that energy forth, and then it's engaged with or not, right? But like that's the whole thing. If you keep putting it out there, you're gonna get engagement, right? Someone's got to do the
Right.
approaching, and you can't just sit there and want to be approached, right? Especially in that circumstance, right? Because that's just that's not going to work unless you're Brad Pitt, right? So it's like,
Sometimes it works for some people though, and it completely depends on the situation. Dude, that's a gray area with all that world. I mean, I just thought from my own head, I'm like, well, usually like you lead the person from one step to another,
of
and
course.
like
That's the same thing with sales too. I mean, if it's the thing, like I've studied sales, and with sales, and the reason I studied sales, it was just part of all of my self-development reading, and I was in real estate at one point, right? So I needed to understand, and people misinterpret sales, and I think this is an important topic because musicians, artists, they have an aversion to business and especially sales a lot of times, and trying to like market themselves and sell themselves. And I think this is such an important thing to work on, because no one's going to hear you until you compel them to hear you, right? So it's like either you tease them with something, and there's all different ways of marketing, right? It's just like oh, while supplies last, right? You put this out there, and it's just like, this is not going to last long. You create this kind of like urgency. Salespeople are important, right? And understanding sales is, I think, useful for anybody, especially for musicians. That if we're working, we are our own team, then we have to be the salespeople of our own music and our own brand and everything. So people need to be able to get that, And in the case of dating, it's selling yourself too. Mm-hmm.
Right. No, sorry to interrupt. I've heard on podcasts before, the solution to every business's problem is sales.
Yep.
If you have problems in your business, get more sales. If you get more sales, you get more revenue. You're probably going to solve a lot of your issues. Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, people are complaining because they're broke, and they're broke because they don't have enough sales.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And that goes with just and I think the underlying theme of like this part of the convo is that you have to be assertive, and you don't have to be overly assertive, but like there has to be something in your life you're assertive with. Again, if you're having problems being assertive with women or with dating, and you're a musician and you're also not assertive with your music, it's like, dude, you gotta like grab one of them by the horns. Like, get the music thing figured out. Be assertive with your music. Be assertive, not overly assertive on social media, but it's like the way we're talking about. We're talking about kind of being organically assertive. Like, if you want fans, type a freaking hashtag in and go comment on someone's post. That's assertive. That's organic. It's not overly assertive to say, hey, love this post or whatever.
Yeah.
The problem is, same thing with your fitness. You want to lose weight, bro, get your ass up and go run. Like, that's being assertive. Like, so what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, no, for sure, dude. Like, as far as asserting yourself in that context, as far as like reaching out to people, you're giving value. You want value? Give value. Simple as that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like it is. Yeah. You're giving, you're commenting on people, like you're giving like just a meaningful feedback. People are so grateful, and then they go and follow your page, right? It's just that's what happens, right? And then and they're appreciative of that, and the more you grow, the more they're like this, like, wow, he reached out to me. That's amazing, right? Even if you aren't even on some kind of like high level yet, you're just kind of starting out. That's what's going to get you there. It's putting yourself out there, plugging yourself into the community, and giving what you expect to get. Give first.
Right. Honestly, man, like one problem that I've really been starting to have with my own content and other people's content is I'm getting really sick of hearing the same thing over and over. And I feel like I'm not trying to say the same thing anymore, but like I'm getting really sick of telling people to add value, because it's like I just don't even want to talk to those people anymore. I'm over it, because I've heard it a million times. I've said it a million times. I'm personally, and the thing is, I agree with you. The problem for me is like I don't even want people who don't get that to be my fan. That's not even that's not my target market. Like, if you don't understand what value is and how to bring it, like, you're not going to want to buy from me because I'm not selling to you. Like, right. You're below the level of the people I want to reach. I know I kind of sound like an asshole. I don't really care.
No. Like, dude, that's important.
Because I'm just getting, And the reason is because I'm actually trying to protect the consumer. Because what I've noticed is people are selling a video course, or let's use that as an example. But all they've preached is what we've just said, the basic shit. And they sound good and they look good, the brand looks good, and then they sell a video course. Well, dude, if they've been saying basic shit and it's the same thing everybody else says, I promise their video course isn't going to be different. And I've actually experienced that. I've bought a video course and hated it and been like, wow, I should have seen the red flags when I thought, because they're saying the same stuff as everyone else. If their free content isn't that in depth. And so the reason I'm sick of it is because we're, as content creators, and I put we because I do it too, and I'm done with it. We just bring value. Like, we sound so brilliant. Like, we're using that as a freaking safety net to just put some fucking content out. And it's like, dude, it's enough, bro. Say something else. Like, Gary Vee already killed that. He beat that dead horse.
Right.
Like, so I'm trying to find new things. Like, okay, well, I guess I'll talk about my productivity journal and my journaling. And we talk about health and wellness and fitness. That's different, bro. We talked about sleep. Like, that's some shit that musicians need. It's 1,000 fans in 90 days.
Yeah.
So
practical shit.
Like, I'm just so like,
rather than I totally hear you. It's such a people put out these platitudes and they just, and they're just hanging their hat on them, and that's very important. It's very important to put out good free content, right? Because that's what's going to get people to, be on your more premium level, whatever you're offering, right? But you offer real value, right? Like I spent the last I spent a few months writing this ebook, and I'm gonna give it away for free for the email subscription, right? And that's the whole thing.
Right.
Now
I have a question of you. Where's your I don't know how deep you want to go into this because you maybe have some plans, but are you building a sales funnel or in a value ladder kind of a deal, or are you just like, I'm trying to just build the email list first? Like, where are you at with that?
Yeah, great question. So basically, to a degree, it's vague. It's not a really kind of structured funnel, right? But I essentially just want more following to for the podcast, right? And which is what the newsletter mainly is for. And then as that has more following, then I can actually start to get advertising revenue from companies for the podcast, that I can put ads before or after the video. So it's not even asking more from the actual listener. The listener doesn't even invest more. They just have some ads at one point later. Got it. But eventually there are other things that I would put forth, But one thing that I want to point out, this is really critical right now. We have the social media environment right now is very interesting, and in that it's becoming more and more apparent that building a social media following is good, but it could be fleeting, It could be easy to, if you have maybe an opinion different from other people, that like you trip some kind of wire accidentally, and then suddenly you're like not on there anymore, right? Like that you get like shut down or something like that. Not to say that because that usually happens to pretty extreme people, but nonetheless, it's an important thing to realize that your following on social media is on social media, and they're not on your own platform. That's right. Your page on Instagram is your page on Instagram, not your page. And so building an email list is actually building your own empire. So I think that's an important thing. What I've realized from a lot of sales books is just like, you really want to get people personally. You need to build a list in some kind of way.
That's a gem. Yeah. Right there that people need. That's some real value. And I've also, same as you, I've read that. So I'm a ClickFunnels like cult member. Like, I love ClickFunnels. So I've read Russell Brunson's books a bunch. And I'm in that community big time. So it's about the different types of traffic you control, traffic you own. you don't own your Facebook list. You don't own Instagram. Instagram and Facebook own that.
Mm-hmm.
So once Mark Zuckerberg slaps everybody and raises the cost of ads, people are going to be screwed.
Yeah.
Unless you have an email list, right? Just like you said. Same with musicians. And, honestly, so here's where I've been at. So as a producer who sells beats, and I come from that angle, it's actually really easy to build an email list. You just give people 5 free beats or 10 free beats. Boom.
Yeah.
You got them. You get them in your sales funnel. As a rapper, a music person, I have had so much difficulty. In fact, I actually gave up on that and have so much to okay, I don't even know. And I'm going to this is just the way I'm doing it. I'm just going to try to earn as much revenue as a producer and then pay somebody else to build my funnel as an artist, because I just can't wrap my head around the value I bring as a musician to build an email list. Like, that's where I got stopped up, that I wish I could solve for other artists. But I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to do it. I know how to do it if you give something of value.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that as a musician?
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is like there ought to be something like Patreon where there's a certain value that you bring. We had a little weak connection for a second. Lee? Yeah, our connection got a little weak for a second. My thoughts on that are basically like you bring more value to, like, think about this. You bring people into your world a little bit more, right? So on the surface level, you put out just hot content, you have all this great stuff, and then maybe you have some early release stuff, the kind of stuff you'd put on Patreon, for example, right? Like the behind the scenes, the kind of stuff that you bring people into your world, right? And maybe you bring a few people actually into your world, like to sit in on a studio session on a high level, right? And so in that kind of way, you can use something like Patreon, or you can even build a subscription in your own website, right? And just by virtue of doing that, you're going to get people in that kind of environment, and then word of mouth would spread that around as well, right? But yeah, it is a little bit. It's a little bit trickier, for sure, because you're not offering something that it's a little more widespread. You're offering something a little bit more artistic and just like how to get people on that, right? I'm thinking from a rock musician point of view, like there are a lot of people who are musicians, and in the case of a rapper, there are people who are, rappers that follow and that are interested and want to kind of know a little bit more of the inner workings, or how you do your thing, right? So
that's actually, you're right. And I think I got to start thinking more about that and just try to exercise it myself, because that's definitely a part that I got stopped up on. And then the Patreon thing, I've thought about, like, wow, how cool would it be if you're just doing your regular thing as an artist, but you also have a bunch of paying members per month. I mean, because now you're getting into continuity, which is like an important revenue stream anyways.
Yeah.
So that's, you're right. That's good stuff. Early release, behind the scenes. No, that's good stuff. I just got to dive more into that, I think. But
what I think a good practice is to go, like, let's say to a Kickstarter page or to a Patreon page or something like that, where you can see a list of things that are offered as tiers, right? And being like, just trying to plug in your own ideas in those slots, right? It's like, okay, so $1, right? Or $1 a month or something like that. Like, what can I offer for that? That's a little bit extra. What can I offer for 5? What can I offer for 10? What can I offer for 20, 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000, right? So, and it sounds, like the bigger artist you are, the more, you can command as far as that. Like, Trent Reznor, I think, was one of the first people in the music industry to really embrace that kind of idea, and to even just to start something that became that whole, like crowdfunding and all of that, right? I mean, that's another thing. Yeah, just crowdfunding, doing Kickstarter campaigns, right?
Right.
This could be taken in a lot of different directions, but like one thing to understand is that from a point of view of like a salesperson, let's say, as an artist, you know, we no longer have people like buying music really, right? Where
Right.
music is pretty much free. What people are buying is like, let's say, merchandise or show tickets and things like that, you know, or some other things like that. You know, today a live like a Zoom, like a private concert on Zoom or something might be a thing as well, right?
Well, and I mean, so especially with COVID, I'm happier than ever that I got into music producing, because now I can that's a revenue that's not contingent on live performances. Like, and I'm extremely happy I got into it. I mean, I started, 3 years ago, but then the COVID happened and I'm like, wow. Like, I've seen memes where it's like a producer sitting in front of a computer on the top and it says music producers before COVID, and then under it's the exact same picture, goes music producers after COVID. Like nothing's changed. And
Right.
I'm like, wow, that's so big. And it kind of goes to show, like what I've said, always try to do more for yourself. And like artists who just constantly depended on other people. Like, I had an artist I was working with who would come into the studio in my house,
Mm-hmm.
and pay for recording time and whatnot. But when the COVID thing happened, he was like, hey, can we still meet up? I'm like, well, no, we're in a pandemic. I don't want anybody coming to my house. Like,
Right.
spitting on my microphone and pop filter right now. It's not a good time. And he couldn't wrap his head around that. And he argued with me about it. And I'm like, well, like, sorry, dude, too bad. Like, I don't want any germs. I don't care if we wipe it down. Like, no. It was like 2 weeks in. And I was like,
Right.
I was freaking out at the time. But the point is, like, a lot of people were probably in that position, and that's why I think one thing that I think artists especially need to do is they need to think of themselves more as a personal brand than just a musician. Like guys like Andrew Huang, I don't know if you know who that is, big YouTuber, like, I don't know, a few million subscribers, and he's a music guy.
Right.
He's a producer, musician, singer, all that. But like the dude has, I don't know, like 1 or 2 million subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't need to put out songs at all.
No.
Like, and he has a Patreon that's pretty successsual. Like the guy's out, and he's got probably sponsorships, and
Oh yeah.
it's like, that's not about putting out music. Like, that's about putting out YouTube videos. I haven't even heard any of his music ever, but I see his YouTube videos and I'm dialed in, and I'm like, he doesn't need to put out music. Like, I don't even need to hear his songs at all to get value out of him. And it's like, oh, well, if that's the case, then as musicians, this isn't even about music anymore. It's not just about releasing music. It's like, obviously there needs to be music related, but there's another artist named DDG. He's a rapper. 2 million subscribers on YouTube. He started out as a YouTuber, and it had nothing to do with music. He was vlogging and doing stupid stuff and funny stuff, but he rapped. Now he put on his music career, and he's got a record deal. He's got 2 million followers on Insta, and he's made a ton of money off YouTube. And it's like, that actually has nothing to do with music.
Right.
It's like, well, what are we doing here? Like, we get so focused on music. It's like, bro, like, you don't need to put out music. Like, you just need to make it and document. And like, you could have a clothing brand.
Yeah.
You could do affiliate marketing and
That's
partner
right.
up with other people. You could do there's tons of different things. It's about generating interest. Music is a way to generate interest, but music shouldn't be the end all be all for you. And if
Right.
it is, you're either too early on or you're just way too limited in your skill set, and you need to like level up.
Yeah. As like one of the most common conversations I have on here is like, what are you doing outside of music? And the point of that is like, there are other skills that are pivotal, that are so important today. I've had artists on here, for example, who have capitalized very well on that, and I've also had artists who honestly struggled when it came into this world, because they actually were huge before the internet became big, right? Yeah, and so they were making their money from selling music, and then Napster, and then eventually Spotify, and everything that came after that. And it was like, okay, selling music is no longer my revenue, then live shows, and now COVID, right? And if they haven't built themselves a solid brand where they're making money through other means, peripheral means, then they're in a tougher spot right now. So
Sure.
Passive income is a very, very common conversation on this podcast, because it's like something that you could create if you really just think about your audience, think about your fans, and what are they into, and why are they into you, and how can you serve them in other ways, right? And how can you sort of spread yourself out in a way that you can provide more value to them in a way that you might not have thought of, like for example clothing, right? And when it comes to the way the bands do things, right? People like sort of plug into this kind of ideas, like, you know, in the rock world, for example, people are they think, okay, I'm gonna just like make some music, right? Start my band, record some stuff, and then go out and play shows and have basic Hanes T-shirts that with my band logo on them, and that's it, right? It's like, yeah. That's just not enough anymore, right? If you take a look at somebody like Tosin Abasi in this band Animals as Leaders, his shirts, they're so nice. They're like, the quality is actually nice. You would buy these shirts whether or not you're into the artist.
Yes, that's my whole thing with clothing.
Right.
That's my whole thing with clothing. I never want it. See, so we have this thing called Gifted by Choice. It's like our clothing brand, right? And
that's beautiful.
It's something that I take. The direction is like, I never wanted shirts that said Leezythegifted on them. Mm-hmm. Like, I always personally, as a person, thought, I'm not going to wear another human being's name. Like, I guess I've worn Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
But Ralph Lauren turned himself into a household name. And, like, Louis Vuitton and Christian Louboutin turned their names into, like, a household name.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't see myself turning the word Leezythegifted into a household name. I think Gifted by Choice is like an adjective. And it's like, I just look at clothing like, I don't care about, I care like your diehard fans will wear your name. But I just was like, dude, I even personally am barely a diehard fan of anyone that I put their face on. Yeah. I have one shirt with a rapper's face on it and one shirt with a rapper's name. But a guy I looked at is Nipsey Hussle. His clothing brand doesn't say Nipsey Hussle. It says The Marathon.
Right.
It's lined up parallel, but it's its own thing.
Exactly.
And like, that's the direction I go with merch. And that's one thing I agree with you, when bands just put their name, I'm like, dude, that's so lame. Like, I don't care about your name specifically.
Right.
Like, I want to know like what you mean.
Right.
And like, what am I rocking? Like, am I just, I don't know. Like, do you get what I mean by that?
I totally get what you mean. I mean, I think I think it's a wasted opportunity, because your fan's gonna wear your shirt right now, and if it has your name on it, they might be more reluctant unless they're like a really high level fan, right? But if if they're into you even a little bit, right, and you offer something that's just like really cool, like Gifted by Choice, that's awesome. That's just like that's a statement that is agreeable, and it's something that, you know, if they're into you on any level, they want to support you, that's something they'd rock anyway. Right. And so they would totally go for it. I started a clothing brand a few years ago too, and it's called Apparel for the Thriving Artist, right?
Okay.
So I have like this like solid like ATA thing, which is like, it's just like a really aesthetic, like balanced logo, and then under it I put mantras like risk failure, have a vision, right, just let go, you know, things like that, right?
Right.
And so that's like a mantra that you would, like, when you wear it, like you sort of like internalize that, and like it would help you do your best work. And it's like a nice tri-blend fitted shirt, right? And you know, I've sort of stepped aside from that because I have so much shit going on that I don't want to half-ass it.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, that's solid, right? You know, you want something that can live on its own and that people can pick up. Everything you do should be able to live on its own, and it shouldn't be dependent on the other. I think, you know, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yep. Yeah. You know, that's crazy. That's exactly it. I didn't really know how to put it, but what you just said, it should be able to live. It should be able to live on its own, which is kind of a reason that I haven't been going as hard with the clothing, because I'm like, well, right now, like the way I would sell clothing is with my personal brand, and my personal brand's not built up to a level where the clothing could really make an impact financially. So I'm like so focused on the personal brand right now more than I am anything else, and just building that massive audience as much as I can.
Yep.
To a point where, right, there's artists where they just need to put the link for a shirt and they put the picture, new shirts available, boom, they sell out.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
level I want to get to that point where I just don't need to. And then you pay for advertising dollars later, but that's its own beast. But I just mean like that's where I'm at. I'm focused on let me build this personal thing up, so that I don't like I can just plug anything into the machine basically.
yeah. I mean, and it's funny because I have students, for example. I teach guitar, right, and I also have kind of taught people other stuff, entrepreneurial kind of stuff. And I remember I was helping this one student with starting like a YouTube channel, and he was like so into like always like, oh man, I want to have this much views because I read that if I have this much views, I'm gonna have this much money from advertisements, right? And I'm like, you're not getting it, right? So it's like if you got to realize if you're making $3,000 a month from advertising, the amount of views that you're getting on your videos, advertising is the least of your revenue in that circumstance, because what you should be doing is capitalizing on that. And like if you're getting that kind of viewership, then if you offer a product or service that's just a cheap product or service, a book, some kind of like, maybe merchandise, whatever, and a fraction of the people who follow your stuff, if you mention it here and there, buy your stuff, like 1% of people buy the stuff every week, like you're going to make way more money than what you're making from advertisement. So it's just like, the focus is not correct.
They get focused on, I understand that they get focused on that ad revenue, and it's like, dude, the ad revenue is like, it's like barely, it's like barely anything. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think that comes with the learning. I thought the same thing. I think that student, I like where their headspace is at. I like what direction they're trying to think about, because I don't have any students, but I've talked to countless artists I'm just like, dude, you're really off. Like, you don't even like, we're not even going there. I can't help you. Like, there's definitely people who I've talked to where I've given up on them. I'm not going to lie. And I'm just like, bro, I cannot help you. And do anything.
It's like, let me, you mentioned something similar before, like having like certain fans like that you're like, you sort of give up on by choice. And I think that's a great thing. Actually, in my last interview, I spoke about firing fans. Right.
Oh, interesting.
All right. So it's like firing your customers, which is an important thing in business. You want to work with the people who are the people who you want, right? And you don't want to spend excess time on people who are really not bringing value to the table, or who aren't your ideal customer, right? It's only a waste of time. You can open up that space to engage with people who are actually engaged with you and who are more along the lines of what resonates with what you're doing, right? So I think that's very important, and there's nothing wrong with dissuading people who are not your ideal customer from engaging with your content, because then you'll have a stronger fan base, right? Not just a bunch of people who are like lukewarm about what you do, So I think that's really critical. Lee, I think you're like frozen up over there.
Yeah, no, you broke up a little, but I got what you said.
Yeah.
I heard it. You had said there's nothing wrong with firing people who aren't in your core fan base.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's very...
Yeah, and it's like... And it's like what you said earlier. You talked about the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's goes with that, like, 80% of your revenue come from that top 20% of your customers. And I've read so many stories in like sales books, like what you've talked about, and people who say, well, I fired this customer. I think actually the 4-Hour Workweek, have you read that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. So I haven't read the whole thing, but I've read parts of it. And Tim Ferriss talks about a customer he had to fire in one of his companies. And it's such an interesting concept that I never, as a young entrepreneur, never would have thought like, wait, really? Like, because I was coming from that place of like, I have 0 customers. So I'm like, bro, I need something. But then as I grew a little, I was like, oh, interesting. Like, because then I worked with people I liked, and I've worked with people I didn't like.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, the people I didn't like working with, like, wasn't even worth the money at that point.
Right.
It's like not worth it at all. So why would if it's not worth the money, then everybody's got their price to do anything. And it's like, if I'm mixing and mastering or making a beat, it's like, well, $150 or whatever it is, $100 to mix and master. But if I hate working with you, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like if you're not fun to work with, if the money's going to be gone anyway. So like, it's not like I don't value money, but it's like, it's just it's about the pros and cons. Like you said, with value, you know, I've worked with people too. I've worked with friends of mine, you know, I've worked with my friends. I don't charge my best friends, but we give each other feedback on our songs. It's like, well, that's providing value. That's not monetary, but it has value. But then I've worked with other artists, and I've worked with just people who are, I'm like, well, you don't have enough money to pay me and you don't want to give me any value, then what are we doing?
Right.
What am I supposed to do with you? Like, yeah, you know?
Yeah. You know, the larger your following becomes, I realize the more you have to be very particular about who you give your time to.
Right.
You know, and also, of course, you know, if you having some good emotional stability, because like there, you know, sometimes there's these trolls and, you know, and not engaging with people who, you know, who aren't into what you're doing, and you don't have to please everybody. Right. In fact, I don't think it's useful to do that, to like, you know, try to have a mentality of like everyone just pleasing everyone. If you don't like what I do, then, you know, go to another page. Right. Like just deal with those who like you. And it's funny because like you mentioned before, like the dating thing, I think that's important too. If you're getting in just obvious blowback, stop being obsessed with something that's not obsessed with you. Right. You know, just or at least not returning that interest, because that's just like, that's a waste of your time, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it comes from a place of like, it comes from a place of just being confident. Like if you're confident in yourself, you really don't need any one particular person. And that's with business and with dating.
Yeah.
So I know, you know, but when you're first starting out, you have no money, you have no customers, but you're not confident. Why would you be? I mean, you can be to a certain level, but it's like, why? I have no reason to be confident. I haven't earned any money. I need like to earn some money. So,
yeah.
You know, but then as you earn some money and you win and you lose and you go through what's happened in the winning and what happened in the losing, then you're like, okay, I have some entrepreneurial battle scars. I have some experiences. Now I know I'm more confident in what does and what doesn't work. And I know for me, 10 times out of 10, it does not work to work with someone you hate working with for an amount of money that isn't worth it. Right. I know that does not ever work. And even if it's a little bit higher amount of money, it's like, it needs to be astronomical, because if you're paying me 5 out of 10, if you're paying me a 5 out of 10, but you're an asshole 10 out of 10 level, dude, this doesn't work.
No.
Like if you're a 10 out of 10 asshole, you better be paying me 20 out of 10 money.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And you know what? I think you know, just to kind of play the other side, to not enable people who haven't really had much success, or you know, haven't even gotten started really, to feel entitled to start firing customers or to start being overly picky at the beginning. When you're just at the surface, you need to get your feet wet, right? So you do need to jump into things and know what you prefer, don't assume, right? Have those bad experiences so you can know, okay, I don't want that one, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So just that's an important distinction, that this is something that, you know, once you have had some experience, that then you know what you need to get out, right? You need to play the field first.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because it's good to clear that up, because I agree that like when you're first starting out and you don't have customers, you should work for everybody for free. Anybody and everybody for free, and just say, hey, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. I'm just starting out. Would you let me do this for free? And you'll know when it's time to fire. You'll know. But that's another issue, is people go a little overly confident in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you do need to be objectively looking and being like, why would I charge somebody if I've never done it? You know, that's hard. It's really not that objective, because it gets to a point where then there's people who have too much imposter syndrome. Like I have that problem. Right. You know, I'm too like, I'm not confident in certain things in my head, but like when I first started producing my own music, I said, okay, I got this skill I could probably monetize this. So my first step was, let's just go for free. And I just produced my friend's music for free, mixed and mastered, made some beats. Then I found one paid client. I was like, all right, I charged him a solid amount. It worked out, and then I just kept going. And then eventually I was like, all right, I don't need to do free work anymore. I mean, I can do free work for people as maybe like a first time free trial, just to see if you like me. But even that, I don't do that. I don't do. I'm not going to give 3 hours away for free. I'm putting the world on my shoulders every day. I'm not giving you free shit anymore. I'll give free value in other ways. There's ways I give free value. I'll give you 5 free beats. I'll give you an ebook that's scalable, right? Like what you're doing. That's scalable. But to a point where I'm going to give you 3 hours of my time consistently for free, I'm at that point now where I'm like, dude, I'm not doing that. I got too much. But you'll know. If you're somebody listening to this and you're just starting out, you need to do as much free stuff as you possibly can and build that resume and build that confidence within yourself.
Word. Yeah, that's so important. That's so important. Yeah, the whole free thing. And I think that that's one area that Gary Vee really harps on a lot, that you just need to go and just like, run coffee basically, as he puts it, and that's important. That's important. So, what who are your mentors? Like, well, actually, I'm curious about this. So you on your page directly, it's just like you help rappers with entrepreneurship and stuff. So how do you go about that? Is it through the podcast?
How do I help? Yeah. It's mainly through the podcast. I got the YouTube show. It's just a vlog I do called Leezy's Life. It's literally just documenting what I'm already doing.
Right.
So it's mostly just through learning through my own experiences. I I'm trying to teach less and show more and document. I'm really not, sometimes I feel like the need to, but I always I used to start out with, this is what you should do, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do to bring value. But it doesn't work. Even if you are somebody who knows what they're doing, people don't take that well, and I never did. And if you come at it with, well, this is what I've done and I know this works. Now people are thinking they should do it on their own. They don't think that I'm saying that they should do it.
Yeah, they don't feel patronized or like spoken down to. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been liberating, because now I'm like, well, wow, I can teach people stuff. Like, I want to teach and I want people to learn from me, but I can do that without knowing what I'm doing. That's pretty cool. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I get to say that all the time. And people appreciate that. And I go, well, look, here's how I'm growing my social media. I'm doing this thing called 1,000 fans in 90 days. It works, and it's free. Do it. So now people are like, he just gave me the formula to grow, and it actually works. So now I'm like, oh, okay, I got exactly what I wanted to get done. I wanted to help people grow on social media, and they just got it. And I just did it through documentation. So the way I do it is the idea of document, don't create, another Gary Vee thing. And ever since I pivoted that, and that happened during quarantine for me, by the way, that was another reason that quarantine became so pivotal, was I just said, oh, I'm not going to say you should. I'm just going to show you what I do.
Yeah.
And the podcast is mostly documentation. It ends up turning into teaching. The vlog is mostly documentation. It kind of turns into teaching. Hey, guys, this is what I do to record vocals. This is what I do to mix. Here's how I make a beat.
Yeah.
So I think it comes mostly from just watch what I do, bro. And if you get something out of it, great. I know you will. And if you don't, then maybe you'll get some on the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's mostly that thought process, but it's also the idea that it's the consistency. It's every day. It's a podcast every day. It's a YouTube every week. It's a song every 2. It's posting on social media every day, either on the feed of Instagram or the story. So it's document over create, and then the idea of high quantity and quality.
Yeah.
That's basically how I do it.
Yeah, no, that's huge, man. That's huge. It's an important thing to just have that consistency. And you're putting out good content, and if you put out good content over time, like, you're sending a message by doing what you're doing rather than telling people what to do, right?
Yep.
Because you're walking the walk, essentially, right? When I do the same thing, and then I'll like say sometimes with my live stream, I'll work out on the live stream and I'll educate as I'm working out, right? I just be like, well, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm just telling people what's going through my head. like,
Right.
and so because I've built up some knowledge in certain things, and like if I have something to offer, I'll offer it, right? I'll just kind of put it out there, right? And I get people hitting me up, who want, like, let's say personal training, or like health coaching and things like that, or people hitting me up for guitar lessons, just by me just giving away things for free, right? Now, as far as getting the most value for your time invested into, like, let's say coaching, right? Your time personally should be at a premium, right? You know that.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So that's something that, like, I'll figure out a way to give something a little bit more scalable out, something cheaper, but something that I'm not investing my time into each time I do it. Something that I've taken the time and put in the work to, like, create some kind of product, like some kind of like course or some ebook or something that gives value, plenty of value for like virtually nothing, for like $5 or whatever, $10. Or maybe a monthly $5 or $10 if it's like a subscription based thing, right? And it gives you this huge access. But if you want individual attention from me, right, and you really want to pick my brain, then okay, we can sit down at like $150 an hour or something like that, and it'll be of plenty of value, because that you've already gotten a lot of value. And then if you want something, you not only, and it's going to work. Even if I don't know that much more than somebody you'd be paying a third less, you're really going to listen to me because you're bought in, because you've been following the content, and you've kind of climbed that ladder, right? And you're also going to pay more attention. The funny thing is, the best advice you're going to get from anybody is the one that you're actually going to apply. Right. And so if you've spent a good amount of money, you've spent, like, I don't know, a few $100 to have a conversation with somebody, to consult, that's skin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're gonna apply that. Otherwise, you're gonna feel the weight of, like, you wasted your money, right? So,
Right.
Like, I the other year, like 2 years ago, I went to a guitar camp kind of thing. It was John Petrucci Guitar Universe, and that was a few grand that I just dished out to to be there, and it was awesome. And there's so much value to that too, that kind of group experience when you kind of do that kind of thing. I like this workshop thing. And I'm thinking to build that kind of thing, because I do this artist health coaching thing where I coach people on coach musicians on health and stuff. And so to do that in like a more group environment, then you have the dynamics of people helping one another, answering each other's questions, and just have this community thing. And then, it's much more scalable. It's actually cheaper because you have all these different instructors, right? It's a win-win-win-win-win. It's just on every level. And I think that's the important thing, to find ways that people can benefit more, right? That doesn't have to be a sunk. That doesn't have to be a win-loss kind of thing, right? Just like competitive, right? This is more
Right.
collaborative. We can actually figure out a way to give more value and get more value at the same time. But yeah, no,
Right.
this is something that we're constantly figuring out, right? But you hit the nail on the head by saying that you just need to be consistent, and consistent, put out quality. Everything we've discussed so far, it's just solid stuff. And yeah, you're telling people, grow your following, do the this 90-day challenge, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
see, now you got me thinking, like we talked about, if you do something every day for a year. So
Yeah.
I'm probably just going to keep doing it every day for the next 365 days.
Do it.
Because I mean, it's like, okay, if I'm thinking like, bro, the growth I've already seen in 5 days,
Yeah.
it's like, damn, like I've grown more in 5 days than I've done in like some 4 or 5 weeks.
Right.
So I'm like, shit, if I do that every day for an hour, it's an hour.
Yeah.
Like if I do that every day for an hour, I'm looking like, holy shit, I see my future. Like I see it. There it is. Now, the only tricky thing is if Instagram shuts down, or if one of these platforms shuts down, I got to start over. But even then, it's like any platform. I could just choose one. I could choose YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. The next thing, I don't know what it's going to be, but
Yeah.
I mean, so now I've got it thinking about, like, I am going to do it for 90 days, but like, honestly, I'm most likely going to just do it like way more. Like I'll probably do it. I want to track 90 days, but I'm probably going to do it much longer than that.
Yeah. No,
You
that's
know?
that's what happened with like this like thing that I'm doing with the live streaming. And here's the thing, like this consistency thing, doing something for a year is so effective because a year is a long time. A lot of things happen in a year, especially this year. A lot of this crazy year, isn't it?
It's like the worst year I've ever lived through, for sure. This is horrible. It
This is
sucks.
not what I imagined 2020 would look like.
No, everybody, 2020, new decade, new me, baby. And then boom, quarantine and boom, protests. Like, screw you, everybody. Like, good luck. Like, I'm like, damn, like, this is like, it's crazy. So, this
Yeah,
will affect the whole decade because everybody's going to look be like, 2023 was cool, but man, you remember 2020? Like, everybody's going to say
yeah,
that, you know? So, anyway, keep
yeah.
going, please. I interrupted.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, so the thing is, like, doing something for a year, I think is so powerful. I have a friend, pretty famous artist, who, he basically, like a visual artist, he did a 365, and it inspired the shit out of me, right? So one year, he just decided, he started in January, to take a photo a day for a year, right? That's like a photographer thing, 365 project, right? And what that means, a photo a day, that means you take hundreds of photos and then you pick one, you know how photographers do their thing. So, and then he developed a style where he photographs paint in bodies of water. He figured that out by like June or so. And then by like November, he had investors and he had prints for like 10 grand that he was selling. So,
Whoa.
yeah, so that's the whole thing, man. Like you really build up like something when you do it every day. And he hermited for a while, you know, like he went in with himself. And you know, it's a real inner battle, man. Like, you know, some days you get up, you don't want to do things like that, you know, you really don't want to put in that time, but you do it, you know, every damn day,
Right.
every damn day, right? So and that really builds character and builds momentum for your
Yep.
career, right? So if you want to exponentially get better at something, just like put in like do it every day for a year. I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and like I've made the whole streaming thing flexible because like the live streaming, it used to be just like I went on and I improvised, like I put on some tracks and I jammed, right, so it's like basically freestyle. But after a while I was like, okay, you know what, I can do different things with this. I don't necessarily have to do that. And so sometimes like I'll talk mindset. I actually read my book live, the whole thing, the other day.
Really?
Yeah. It's only an hour read. It's like 8,000 words or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's dense. It's small. It's packed with stuff, but it's small because I don't want people to have to kind of read hundreds of pages or whatever. Because I know most people won't. Uh, so especially musicians, you know, I know my market.
Right.
Um, so yeah, like just do the thing, do something consistently, you know, and it's really going to have an effect. And you'll realize that, okay, once you're doing something for a period of time and it's like, okay, this is not quite working, well, what is working and what can I do more of? And then you just keep adjusting. You don't stop because you're going to do it for a year, right? And so long that, you know, you'll have your lulls and you'll have your successes, and you'll be able to do a longer experiment. That's really what it is. People don't do things long enough to see if they'll work.
Right. No, yeah, that's very true. People just, that's what's been a sort of trouble for me thinking about, like, if I ever wanted to develop, like, why I don't want to do mentorship right now, like why I don't want people to pay me for mentorship, because it's like, bro, I don't have anything to tell you that you haven't seen. And like, it's so hard for me to think of like something secret. There is no secrets. Like, just like I literally have just told people this 1,000 fans in 90 days, which I heard from someone else for free.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, like, I'll think of it, like it'll come to me when my career grows. I'll obviously come up with a mentorship program, but for right now, it's like, dude, like, just like do that. Like, I just said it. Like, it'll take me 2 seconds to explain it to you. Now go do it. Like, that's it. And the problem is a lot of people, and I also feel guilty because I've paid for courses where, so one course I particularly remember I paid for, the guy had great value, but I bought the course, and it kind of felt like, how do I explain this? It sort of felt like the course was a lot of beating around the bush, and it was the entire course was beating around the bush. And then I got to the end, and I didn't even finish it. I had gone so deep. It was a long course, and I got like 3/4 of the way, and I'm like, dude, this has been beating around the bush this whole time, and I don't want to see it doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of this tunnel here. Like, there's a lot of beating around the bush material. And I've realized, like, if I were to do that, that's exactly what I would do. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, for mentorship, I want to put people on the track that I know will get them money, because I think that's kind of the, like, I don't know, that's like the end all be all for my target market. Sure. So, like, it's just like I haven't gotten there. So I don't want to have you pay me to tell you something that I don't know how to do myself. And yeah, that's just it.
You know what it is, though? I mean, I sense a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Because I think you can help.
Oh, 100%. Right.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah. I think you can help a lot more than you think you can help. I think because here's the thing. Most people, they know what they need to do already, right? And they've seen all the content. They know what they need to do. It's just that they have no one to be accountable to. And so if literally, if you have a thing where you literally check in with somebody every week, on like, you know, a specific time, you have an hour phone call, and you basically, this is what Tony Robbins coaching is essentially, right? Except they have like some particular like things that they cover, or like, you know, that they question you on, but really they just ask you, what are you trying to do? What are you doing now about that? What can you do? Right? And how are you doing on that every week? Okay. You know, so, okay, what are you going to do this coming week? I'm going to do A, B, and C. Okay, cool. They call you back next week. So did you do A, B, and C? Right? And that's pretty much it. And it, like, you know, I mean, people can have an accountability partner. They can just find someone else who wants to do the same thing, and they question each other, right? And maybe they even put skin in the game. I think actually 4-Hour Workweek talks about this.
Okay.
Yeah, and the way they do it in 4-Hour Workweek, I think he sets up he puts money on the table. Right, so he gives like a certain amount of money to his friend to hold on to, and then if he doesn't do the thing he said he's going to do, then he actually donates that money to an anti-charity. So what that means, this is interesting. He figures out like the organization he's just like hates the most, right, and has his friend basically ready to like put his money into that, you know, into that organization, like donate it to, like,
that's nuts.
Yeah, it's so nuts. But like, yeah, he wants to avoid that happening, and so he'll do this thing. So everyone has like different kind of little positive and negative kind of motivation, right? But the idea is like that's all a coach really needs to do, right? It's not like do this, do this, do this. It's like, well, what do you want to do? Okay, well, what do you need to do to get there? What do you think you need to do? Well, that sounds like a good idea. Have you considered this? And then it's mostly them giving themselves advice, and you basically being there to just make sure that they did what they said they're going to do, right? Yep. But if
you're right.
And then you just poke holes in like something that like, oh, that sounds like, you know, maybe a little misguided. Have you considered this, right? And so you don't teach that much. You just kind of like you have your knowledge of what works and what doesn't work to a good degree, but it's mostly them just taking experiments, right? And you just being there to just being that figure that like they're embarrassed to come back to the following week having not done what they said they're going to do.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, so, you're actually right. See, you got the gears thinking now. You got the gears going. Now I'm really starting to think about stuff that I think I could and should be doing. Huh. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's dope. I just got free coaching from you. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's well,
thank you. That's a,
yeah, and that's really all it is. People don't need that much. People know for like, this is going to be a bold statement a bit, but I think people have the knowledge. Most people have the knowledge that they need to be successful, but they just don't do what they know.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I had thought that earlier in this interview, but I don't know if I said it. But it was like, yeah, like. Same with it. I think maybe had brought it up with dieting.
Right.
Dieting's hella simple. Like, just don't eat shit.
Yeah. Like eat food you think
for
is
100
healthy.
days.
Right. Eat
Yeah.
food you know is healthy, right? You don't have to know that much, right? To know that like, potato chips are not food, right? And so just eat
Yeah,
your,
like what you're about to touch and drink, like is that good or not good?
right.
And like it's pretty simple. Good or not good.
Right.
And then but see then people get into the whole moderation thing. It's
Uh-huh.
like, well, you can do moderation, but if you're 400 pounds, there ain't no fucking moderating. You need to like, you need to like do some shit different.
Yeah.
You can't moderate. Like some people have an addiction to food,
Yeah.
And now I'll get back to what we were originally saying, but like for people who are addicted to alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, one is too much and 1,000 isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same shit with food, and it's the same shit with bad habits. Same thing with food. So people who are overweight have like an addiction to food.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you going to tell somebody who's addicted to food? Are you going to tell somebody who is addicted to alcohol and they've lost their life, they've lost their livelihood, they've lost their family, they have no money, and they're miserable and they've almost died. An alcoholic. Would you tell that person, oh, you can drink in moderation? No.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever said that. No. People say you need to quit drinking, right?
Right.
So why is it the same thing with food? Why is it different with food?
Right.
People have this moderation bullshit. What do you mean moderate? You're overweight. What do you mean moderate? You wouldn't say that to someone addicted to heroin.
No.
The problem with food is that we have to eat food every day. You don't have to drink alcohol. Right. You don't have to take heroin to survive.
Right.
So food's tough. It's a much tougher addiction. It's probably the toughest addiction.
Yeah.
So, but it's the same thing with bad habits and social media. It's the same shit. It's like, dude, okay, if you like take a day off of your 90 days, your 1,000 fans in 90 days, is that good or bad? Oh, you could do it in moderation. Like, no, you can't do it in moderation. You're broke right now.
Right.
And you don't want to be broke tomorrow.
Right.
And you don't want to be broke in a year. Well, dude, like take a day off, fine. But like you take that one day off today, next week you'll take 2 days off and then 3. Now how's that moderation go? Now you're not doing it anymore.
Right.
So it pisses me off, the moderation thing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really don't believe in it.
Right.
Like,
no.
I guess if you want to maintain, moderation is good, but if you want extreme results, you need to fucking have extreme discipline and do stuff differently.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like there's really something to doing something every damn day. Like,
yeah,
and let me tell you, like, because I have some, I've done this live streaming thing for 118 days. Like, there were days where I'm up at 7 a.m. and I haven't went to bed yet, and I didn't live stream yet. And
right.
What did I do? I'm laying in bed like this, and I'm just talking some shit into my phone. Like that's what I had to do, because that day I procrastinated till that point, but I did it.
Right.
But I did it, I did it. I did the minimum amount that day, right? Because if I didn't do it, every action is the start of a momentum, and it's the start of a new direction, right?
Sure.
Inaction is inertia, right? So not taking action has its own momentum in a negative direction, right? So we can't let ourselves off the hook, right? Just that one potato chip, that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it is.
It's a slippery slope, right? I mean, like yesterday, I ate some popcorn. How much popcorn? This much popcorn. Because you can't eat one popcorn, right?
No, you can't.
No, it's salty and buttery, and no, you can't. You can't. So, and that's the whole thing. It's just like, but here's another on the other side of that. So let's say you fucked up, right? Let's say you went off on the.
Because you feel like you did with that pop.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So let's say you messed up like I did with the popcorn, and like what do you do post that? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Are you pissed off at yourself? And now it's like, well, I messed up. I may as well just throw everything in the can, and now I need to start over, and so you go off on the deep end. So I guess it's a cheat day, and then just you go off just completely destroying everything, right? Or you just accept what you did. And then from then, you just kind of, you center yourself and you continue just as you were, right? You could accept that you're human and that you err and that you make mistakes. and that you just, you were just not present in that moment, right? Maybe you had a little bit to drink and your judgment was a little bit clouded or whatever it is.
Right.
And you just move on. You see, I meditate, right? So,
Right.
and what one thing in meditation, which is so important, there's a lot of people who say, I spoke about this at length in my last interview. A lot of people who talk about, I can't meditate, or I tried that and it didn't work for me. And that's because they thought that they have to not think, or that they thought they have to be this perfect, silent, like Zen being that just has no thoughts or nothing, right? That's not true.
Sure.
You just observe them. You just see what's there, and you just see it for what it is, and you don't judge it. Right? That's the biggest thing, not judging, right? So let's say I thought for like almost the entire meditation. Am I going to be pissed off that I had a bad meditation? No, that's the process, right? If in 20 minutes I got 5 seconds of just like awareness, that's it. Like that's what it was that day, and that, I'm not going to judge that as bad or good. It's just I've done the practice. I've sat down to do the thing, right? And maybe I wasn't as focused today. All right, that's what the mind does. That's okay, right? But the forgiving myself after that point, after realizing that I've been off, whether it's in my meditation or it's in like diet or anything else like that, I realized that I've been off the ball, right? The moment I realize, it's not like this, lashing myself and, feeling like sorry for myself or angry or whatever. It's just like, okay, that I did that. Now let me just right here, just let's continue on the path. Not do this thing where I'm doing cardio for 2 hours on a bike, punishing myself. No, I just realize what I did wrong, and I just go back to the process, right? It's always just returning to the breath, like in meditation, or returning to the process, returning to the exercise, returning to the streaming, returning to the social media engagement. I haven't engaged with people in a few days. I fell off the ball, right? Okay, let's go right back to it, right? It's always just coming back. And it's not like, don't use that as an excuse to fall off again at a later point. Just be aware so you can prevent it from happening next time. And if it does, don't judge yourself for it. Just come back. Right? Just get back on the road. Keep walking. Keep going.
100%. Yeah, and I think that helps with a lot of people's mental health. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good stuff. That's real talk, man. I actually got to wrap up pretty soon because I got something else going at 2:15.
Okay.
So do you usually have like, how do you want to wrap up?
Well, what would be your one piece of advice you'd share with all musicians if you had like one little thing for them to hold on to?
I would say the biggest thing I could say for anybody, Gary Vee's thing is like emotional intelligence, and that's his like number one trait. Mine is open-mindedness. You have to be super open-minded. And the problem is people say they're one thing and they stick to it, or they say they have their ideals and they stick to it. You need to be more open-minded. You need to realize that you might be doing something wrong, and you should actually think that everything you're doing is wrong. You should be open enough to feel like maybe everything I'm doing is wrong and be ready to pivot in any way. That's what's been the reason for That has been the reason for anything good that's ever happened in my whole life, whether it's friends, girlfriends, any success with music, anything. My fitness has always been, let me try. I'm down to try. I'm down to meet this person. Sure, I'll do this podcast, right? Oh, a podcast every day. All right, I'll try it. Oh, produce my own music? Okay, I'll try. Like, it's always just been that. And it's never failed. Sometimes it has. Sometimes I've done something where I'm like, oh, that didn't work out. But honestly, more often than not, my open-mindedness has led me down the right path. And I notice a lot of people aren't. They come up, well, it's like, okay, I just told you something that I guarantee will help you. And you're now not doing it because you're not open-minded. Right. It seems to me that's the source of why most people don't do things. So my big piece of advice is just be more open-minded and be open to try, anything that might help you. Don't do something that won't help you, obviously, but be open-minded, be willing to change, and think that everything you're doing could be completely wrong and you need to change anything. Nothing should be that sacred to you. Right. Barely anything should be that sacred to you.
I hear that. Lee, it's been awesome having you on the show, and we'll stay in touch, and hopefully we can have another conversation in the future.
Absolutely. Alex, thank you for what you're doing. You're on the right track, and I'm glad that we were able to just connect to the power of social media.
That's right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Cheers, my man.
Awesome. All right. See you, Alex. Have a good day.